Dawn Kellington, and I am the Survivor 101 Program Coordinator with CFS Saskatoon. Today, I wanted to spend some time talking a little bit about mindfulness. So, I know for me, sometimes I can feel overwhelmed when I think about practicing mindfulness because it's hard to know where to start. It sounds kind of boring sometimes. There's just all these feelings that I have about mindfulness. But I have found that for me, mindfulness is a way to really help my body and my brain calm down. It helps me feel regulated, and it helps me be in a place where I can focus on what I want to do and what's before me, whether that's going to sleep or working on a task like maybe vacuuming the floor or doing something else. Mindfulness is really a great way to help me feel grounded and connected to the present moment. There's so many ways to practice mindfulness. I'm sure that you have some that work really well for you. Today, I want to share about a process that I use that helps me practice mindfulness. And I'm going to show how I would use it with a couple different things. So, first of all, mindfulness isn't something that we only can do on its own, sitting, thinking about just nothing or trying to think about nothing. Mindfulness is actually something we can incorporate into a lot of areas of our lives. And a way that I like to incorporate mindfulness is into reading of stories or reading of poems or different kinds of written art, or through creating. And my favorite way to create and practice mindfulness is with watercolor paints or pastels. But you could use anything. So, yeah, let's give it a whirl and work through it. Okay, so when I want to practice mindfulness, the first thing I might do is find a poem or something that I want to explore. Sometimes song lyrics are really great. Really anything. So today, I'm using an excerpt from Hand in Hand, the new Survivor 101 Youth Voice project that was just created. So I flipped through here and I found this poem. It's untitled, and the first line is, "I am young and passionate." So to practice mindful reading, the first thing I would do is just take a moment to settle into my chair. I like to take a couple minutes to think about my breath and just focus on my inhale and exhale. And I always try to see if I can get my exhale to be just a little bit longer than my inhale. So once I feel settled, I would then read at my own pace the poem that I want to read. I am young and passionate. I wonder where the world went wrong. I hear the sounds of challenging change. I see my future being beautiful. I want to be at the forefront of the change. I am young and passionate. I pretend to understand the world. I feel anxious about my grandchildren's lives. I touch the lives of others. I worry about if I'm strong enough to be a leader. I cry over the lack of maturity and logic in government officials. I am young and passionate. I understand changing one person is enough. I say I can do even more than that. I dream to make the world a better place. I try to keep myself accountable. I hope my life will end up being meaningful. I am young and passionate. So once I've read the poem, then I just take a moment to check in again with my body and ask myself, am I feeling anything in my body, or is there any sensations that I am aware of? So that could be maybe coldness or warmth. It could be tension or a feeling of being relaxed. Maybe you feel fidgety, or maybe you feel kind of floppy. All of those are okay. But yeah, just take a moment to reflect on the sensations that you're feeling. And then once you've done that, you can read your poem again if you want. And then you can ask yourself, is there any emotions that are coming to mind as I read this? And is there any images? So I often will have an image come to mind before I have an emotion. And that could be an image of yourself, it could be an image of a building, of a place, a setting, of different people. It could be an image of anything. And when it comes to emotions, it could be any emotion. A really important piece of mindfulness, however we're practicing it, is that we don't get caught up in the whys. We really just be, right? So if you read a poem and then you realize that you're kind of feeling excited or sad, that's okay. Just accept it, acknowledge it, and continue on. So after you've had a time to think about any images or emotions that come to mind, this is where, if you want, you could incorporate some time for creation. So maybe you want to write a poem, or maybe you want to make up a song, or even act something out, or color, draw. You could do that, especially if you have an image. It could be really great to get that image out. And then lastly, I might read the poem one more time, and then after that, I would just ask myself, is there anything else that this experience wants me to take from it? And this is really the optional step, because sometimes we'll have something that feels really applicable to what's going on for us, that we've realized during this time, and other times we won't, and that's completely okay. Whenever we practice mindfulness, it's helping our brains and bodies be regulated, and that is really the goal. And if there's a little tidbit of insight that we can recognize, that's also really great. But sometimes those tidbits just go straight to our brain and we don't even know exactly what they are. So that's how I would practice mindfulness, using a poem. The other way that I practice mindfulness quite often is by creating. So, as I said, my favorite forms of doing this are usually with pastels or watercolor markers, but you can do it with anything. And I think that's a really important thing. Mindfulness isn't something that we need a really cool yoga mat for, or we need to have we need to be in a beautiful meadow for. Mindfulness is something we can do anytime. I'm just going to use these random markers I found, and practicing mindfulness while creating or drawing or coloring is very similar to how we practice mindfulness when we are reading a story or poem. So the first step is I would just tune into my body. And then once I've done that, I would just start to draw or color. And again, there's no expectations in mind. I just like to start. I just choose a color, whatever color, and I make a line. And after that line, I make another line. And I just keep going from there. Not thinking, but really just letting the colors and images show up. And I would continue doing this until the whole page was filled up, or until I felt like I had done as much as I felt like I wanted to do. And as you can see this morning, I made really just lines, and sometimes I often will make lines in different patterns, but sometimes I'll find myself drawing people or drawing a scene. It really, again, doesn't matter. Whatever comes to mind is good. And then after I'm finished creating, drawing or painting or whatever it is, I would again just take a moment to ask myself, what am I feeling in my body? What sensations am I aware of? Again, maybe it's tingling, maybe it's grumbling in your stomach. It could be anything. And then after that, I might take some time looking at my picture again. Maybe there's something I want to add to it. Once I'm done taking it in, looking at the colors, the patterns, I would ask myself, is there a feeling that's coming to mind, or is there an image that I have? So as I was making this picture with the lines, I didn't have an image in mind, but at the end I might look at it and realize that there is one that comes to mind. And after that, again, I might take a minute just looking at my creation, just sitting and being, and then I would just ask myself if there's anything that I feel that I want to take from this time of mindfulness. Again, There very well might not be, but there might be something that you've realized or something that you've been able to see in a new way. And after that, I always like to end by taking a couple breaths, and then I carry on with my day. So that's how I practice mindfulness, with reading and with creating. And I really like to do this in the morning to kind of start my day off in a settled place. And I also really like to do it at night. Yeah, before I go to bed, when I just want to calm down a little bit and be ready to sleep or try to sleep. Yeah, and I love doing this. And with that said, I do try to do it every day, but that doesn't actually happen, especially recently when there's been changes to routine and schedule. I definitely do this a little bit less than I like to, but yeah, it is something that I have found has been really helpful for me. And hopefully it'll be helpful for you, or at least give you something to try. So, again, just to recap, this is something you can really do with almost any activity. The main steps are to take a moment to settle yourself, and just take a couple breaths. Feel yourself in the seat or in the spot that you're sitting in or the spot you're standing in. And then after that, either read whatever you're going to read, look at whatever you're going to look at, do whatever you're going to do, and then after you can just ask yourself, what are you feeling in your body? Are there any sensations that are coming to mind? It could be in any part of your body, and it could be any kind of feeling. After that, I take another moment to read, to do, to watch, or whatever it is, to reflect, and then I ask myself if there's any feelings or emotions that are coming up. And again, I just observe them. I don't have to know why. And then I also ask myself if there's any images that are coming to mind. And again, that could be of people, places, things. It could be just colors. It could be anything. And after that, I take another moment to do or watch or read or make. And then lastly, I ask myself if there's any nugget of insight or wisdom that this experience wants me to take forward. And again, sometimes we don't know what that piece of insight is, and that's completely okay. And we just trust that it's going straight to our brain, and that's great. And that's how I practice mindfulness. So I would love to hear from you, if there's ways that you incorporate mindfulness into creating or reading or any kind of other form of expression. Have a good day. Bye. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching our video. If you're in need of support, click the link below or email one of the coordinators to get access to our Google Classroom, where we post different strategies and coping techniques and resources to help you and your mind be healthy during this time.